The masked man made me choose who died first. Me, or my wife. And the worst part? I actually hesitated. That's the part nobody understands when they read the police reports later. They think hesitation means I didn't love her enough. They think if they were in my position, they would have instantly sacrificed themselves without fear. But fear doesn't work like that when death is staring directly into your face. Fear turns your brain into static. Fear slows time. Fear makes every breath feel borrowed. And that night, inside our own house, tied to a chair while my wife screamed through blood and tears, I learned what kind of man I really was. Started at 11:43 at night. I remember because Emily laughed at something stupid on TV and said, "We should have gone to bed an hour ago." Normal sentence. Normal night. That's what haunts me most now. Nothing felt wrong. No creepy feeling. No bad energy. No warning. We were sitting on the couch eating cheap takeout while rain hammered against the windows. Emily had one of my oversized hoodies on with her legs curled under a blanket, scrolling through apartment renovation ideas even though we already finished renovating 6 months ago. That was Emily. Always planning the next thing. The next trip. The next paint color. The next future. She couldn't sit still mentally. I used to love that about her. Now remembering it feels like swallowing glass. She looked over at me during some reality show argument and laughed. "If you ever embarrass me like that in public, I'm leaving you." I smirked. "Good luck surviving without me." "Oh please. I'm the responsible one in this relationship." "That's insane. You literally forgot your own birthday last year." "That happened once. It happened twice." We were still arguing jokingly when the power went out. Instant darkness. The TV died. The lamps shut off. Even the kitchen lights disappeared all at once. Outside, thunder cracked loudly enough to shake the windows. Emily groaned immediately. Seriously. I stood up automatically. Probably the storm. But the second I reached for my phone flashlight, I heard the back door open. Slowly. Not loudly. Just enough. One tiny creak. My body froze instantly. Emily heard it too. I turned toward the kitchen darkness carefully. "Hello?" Nothing answered. Then came footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Inside our house. Every instinct in my body screamed danger immediately. Emily whispered, "Ryan." I grabbed the fireplace poker beside the couch while trying to see through the dark. Another flash of lightning lit the kitchen for half a second. And I saw him. Tall. Broad shoulders. Black rain jacket soaked from the storm. Standing completely still near the counter. Watching us. Emily screamed instantly. I moved toward her automatically, holding the poker up. "Get the hell out of my house." The man didn't move. Didn't speak. Another lightning flash hit. And this time I saw the mask. White. Distorted. Almost human-looking but wrong enough to feel terrifying immediately. Then the man stepped forward calmly. And pointed a gun directly at me. Everything inside my body dropped cold. "Sit down," he said quietly. Not yelling. That calm voice scared me more than anything. Emily grabbed my arm hard. "Take whatever you want." The masked man tilted his head slightly. "I'm not here for things." Those words changed the entire atmosphere instantly. Because robbery suddenly disappeared as a possibility. This wasn't random. This was personal. I tightened my grip on the poker. Bad idea. The man fired once into the ceiling. The gunshot exploded through the house like a bomb. Emily shrieked. Pieces of drywall rained onto the couch. My ears rang violently. "Sit," the man repeated. I obeyed immediately. Fear replaced pride very quickly. The masked intruder walked closer slowly, gun never leaving my face. Then he looked directly at Emily. "There she is." That sentence made my stomach turn. Emily looked confused instantly. "What?" The masked man laughed softly under his breath. "You really don't recognize me?" Emily's face changed slightly. Tiny reaction. Tiny. But I noticed it. And apparently he did too. "There it is," he whispered. "I knew you would." "What do you want?" she asked shakily. The man ignored her. Instead he pulled zip ties from his pocket. "Hands behind your back." I stared at him. "Please don't hurt her." "Hands." Within seconds he tied both of us to separate dining chairs in the living room facing each other. Rain continued crashing outside while thunder shook the house every few minutes. Everything felt unreal, like a nightmare refusing to break. The masked man moved around calmly afterward. Too calmly, like he'd imagined this moment for a long time. He locked the front door, checked the windows, closed the blinds, then finally stood between us holding the gun loosely. Emily's voice cracked now. "Who are you?" The masked man stared at her for several seconds before answering. "You ruined my life." My heart started pounding harder. Emily looked genuinely confused now. "I don't know you." "Yes you do." "No, Yes, you do." His tone changed sharply enough to make her stop talking instantly. Then he looked toward me. "You love her?" The question caught me off guard completely. "What? You heard me." "Yes." "How much?" I stared at him in disbelief. "What kind of question is that?" He crouched directly in front of me slowly. "Enough to die for her?" Cold sweat rolled down my back. Emily started crying now. "Please stop." The masked man ignored her completely. "You know what's funny?" he said quietly. "Everybody thinks they're brave until the moment comes." I tried keeping my voice steady. "If this is about money." "It's not." "What do you want from us?" His eyes locked onto mine through the mask. "I want honesty." Then suddenly he stood and walked toward Emily. She panicked instantly. "Don't touch me." He grabbed her jaw aggressively. And that's when everything changed. Because Emily looked terrified, but not confused anymore. She knew something. I could feel it. The masked man leaned close to her face. "You told him yet?" Emily shook her head immediately. "No?" Still pretending. My chest tightened painfully. "Emily?" I whispered. "What is he talking about?" Tears streamed down her face now. "Ryan, please." The masked man laughed softly. "Oh, this is beautiful." "What did you do?" I asked her. "I didn't." "She cheated on you." The room went dead silent. My brain literally refused to process the sentence. "No," Emily said immediately, but her voice broke when she said it. And deep down, I knew. The masked man stepped backward slowly. "She cheated on you with me." I stared at Emily, waiting, begging silently for her to deny it convincingly. She couldn't even look at me. That hurt more than the gun, more than the break-in, more than the fear. "Emily." She started sobbing harder. It meant nothing. My entire world tilted sideways, because suddenly random memories started reconnecting. Late nights, hidden texts, distance, excuses, trips, tiny weird moments I ignored because love makes people stupid. The masked man watched me carefully like he was enjoying the collapse. "She told me you were weak." Emily screamed instantly. "Stop." "She said she stayed because you were safe." "Please." "She said you'd never survive without her." I felt physically sick. Emily cried uncontrollably now. "Ryan, don't listen to him." But it was too late, because truth has a sound to it. And I heard it. The masked man suddenly grabbed another chair and sat directly between us casually, like we were old friends having a conversation. "You know the crazy part?" he said to me. "I actually loved her." Emily closed her eyes immediately. "I would have done anything for her." The gun rested loosely across his lap now. "She promised she'd leave you." "Please stop talking," Emily whispered. "But she lied." He looked toward her slowly. "Didn't you?" Emily couldn't answer, and that silence told me everything. Thunder exploded outside again. The masked man stood abruptly, then pulled another handgun from inside his jacket. My stomach dropped instantly. He walked over to me calmly, and pressed the weapon into my hands. It was shaking so badly I almost dropped it. "What are you doing?" I whispered. Then he grabbed my wrist, and slowly lifted the gun toward my own head. Emily started screaming violently now. "No, no, no, please." The masked man pressed his gun against her face at the same time. And then he said the sentence that destroyed my life forever. "You've got 5 seconds to prove she matters more than you do." I stopped breathing. "Pull the trigger," he whispered. Emily was sobbing hysterically now. "Ryan, please. Or I kill her first." My finger trembled against the trigger instantly. Everything collapsed into panic. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't process reality. The masked man started counting calmly. 5. Emily screamed my name. 4. I stared at the gun shaking in my hands. 3. My body locked up completely. Fear swallowed everything. 2. Then Emily suddenly screamed something that shattered me even more. I did love you. Past tense. Loved. Not love. Loved. And somehow that hurt worse than the cheating itself. 1. My finger froze. I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. I just couldn't. The masked man sighed softly, almost disappointed, then turned the gun fully toward Emily's head, and smiled beneath the mask. You chose yourself. The gunshot never came. Just a click. A hollow metallic click. That was it. No explosión. No blood. No scream. Nothing. For 1 full second nobody moved. My finger was still frozen against the trigger pressed to my own head while Emily cried hysterically across from me. The masked man slowly tilted his head, then started laughing. Not loud. Not crazy. Worse. Quiet laughter. The kind that sounds genuinely disappointed in humanity. My chest heaved violently while I stared at him trying to understand what just happened. The gun was empty. The entire time. You couldn't do it, he whispered. Emily sobbed uncontrollably. Please. Please just let us go. The masked man looked toward her slowly. I would have done it for you. Then he turned the gun toward himself. Pulled the trigger instantly. Click. Empty too. Cold realization crawled through me. Neither gun was loaded. This entire thing had been a test. A sick, twisted psychological game. And somehow that terrified me more than actual murder. Because normal people don't create moments like this. Normal people don't want to watch others emotionally break apart. You're insane, I whispered. The masked man looked at me. No, he said calmly. I was in love. Then suddenly his voice changed. Harder now. More personal. You know what she told me after sleeping with me the first time? Emily screamed immediately. Stop. She laughed about you. I shut my eyes instantly. Didn't want to hear it. Didn't want confirmation. But he kept going anyway. She said you still kissed her forehead before work every morning like some loyal puppy. Emily was shaking violently now. Please. She said watching you trust her made her feel guilty for maybe 10 minutes. Every word stabbed deeper. Not because I fully believed him, but because enough of it sounded real. That's what betrayal does. It weaponizes doubt. Even memories become poison. The masked man walked slowly around the room while talking like he'd replayed these conversations in his head 1,000 times. She told me your biggest fear was abandonment. I looked at Emily instantly. Her eyes widened slightly, and that tiny reaction destroyed me, because it was true. I told her that once after drinking too much during our 2nd year together. I told her my dad disappeared when I was 9. I told her I spent years terrified everyone I loved would eventually leave too. And she told him. My throat tightened painfully. She told me everything, the masked man continued quietly. Your insecurities, your routines, your passwords, your dreams, everything. Emily cried harder now. I was drunk. I didn't mean. You always mean it eventually. Then suddenly he walked toward me again. Fast this time. Aggressive. He grabbed my hair violently and forced my head upward. You know what's pathetic? He hissed. You still love her right now. I tried pulling away but couldn't. And the worst part? He was right. Even after hearing all this, part of me still desperately wanted this entire thing to be fake. That's how love works when it's real. It survives long after dignity dies. The masked man released me roughly, then sat back down across from us again. Rain hammered harder against the windows now while emergency sirens echoed somewhere far outside. Too far. Nobody was coming. You want to know how we met? He asked casually. No, I said immediately, but he smiled beneath the mask. She approached me first. Emily shook her head desperately. That's not what happened. It literally is. You manipulated me. His eyes narrowed slightly. Manipulated. You knew I was vulnerable. And yet you kept coming back. Silence. Ugly silence. The masked man leaned backward in the chair slowly. She used to leave your house pretending she was going to yoga. I stared at Emily. She couldn't even look at me anymore. She'd drive straight to my apartment. I felt nauseous. She liked hotels more though. Stop talking, Emily screamed. But he ignored her completely. She said cheating felt exciting because you were so predictable. That sentence physically hurt. Predictable. After everything I did for her. Every bill. Every sacrifice. Every late shift. Every promise. Predictable. I looked at Emily again. still praying somehow, still hoping she'd finally deny everything. Instead, she whispered something barely audible.
I'm sorry.
And honestly, that hurt more than all of it. Because apologies mean the crime is real. The masked man suddenly stood again, then slowly removed his gloves. My stomach tightened instantly. His hands were covered in scars. Deep scars. Burn scars maybe. Old. Violent. Emily noticed too, and immediately looked terrified in a different way. Not just fear anymore. Recognition. What happened to your hands? I asked carefully. The masked man laughed softly. She never told you about that either? Emily started shaking harder. Please don't. You know what she did after telling me she loved me? The room felt colder suddenly. She disappeared for 3 days. Emily whispered, Don't. I thought she was dead. His voice became quieter now. Dangerously quiet. I called her 74 times. He pulled a cracked phone from his pocket and tossed it onto the floor in front of me. The screen lit up. Missed calls. Dozens. Emily looked sick now. She blocked me, he continued, after promising we'd finally be together. The room felt suffocating. She went back to playing happy wife. He stared directly at her. And I snapped. Emily broke down completely now. I never wanted this.
No.
You just wanted attention. He crouched in front of her suddenly. You wanted worship. Emily recoiled instantly. You wanted 2 men fighting over you because it made you feel powerful. Tears poured down her face uncontrollably. I made mistakes. Mistakes. He laughed harshly. You built entire fake realities for both of us. Then he looked toward me again. She told me you'd kill yourself if she left. My blood went cold. Because I remembered that conversation too. Not literally. Never literally. But during one drunken fight months ago I told her losing her would destroy me. And she weaponized it. Shared it. Mocked it. The masked man stood again slowly. You know what finally broke me? Nobody answered. She got pregnant. The room stopped. My pulse froze instantly. Emily's eyes widened in horror. And suddenly I couldn't breathe anymore. What? The masked man smiled slightly beneath the mask. Oh, she didn't tell you? Emily looked like she might faint.
No.
He laughed again. That's interesting.
Ist her.
Every nerve in my body screamed. Emily. She burst into tears immediately. It wasn't his. The world tilted sideways. What? It wasn't his, she repeated desperately. The masked man watched both of us silently now, like he was enjoying the collapse. Emily cried harder. Ryan, I swear to God the baby was yours. Baby, baby. The word echoed violently inside my skull. What baby? She shut her eyes. I lost it. Silence. Pure silence. My chest tightened so hard it physically hurt. You were pregnant? She nodded while sobbing. When? 3 months ago. 3 months ago. That's when she randomly disappeared for an entire weekend claiming she stayed with her mother after an argument. I remember bringing flowers to apologize for a fight I couldn't even remember anymore.
Jesus Christ.
The masked man spoke quietly now. She told me it was mine. Emily screamed instantly. Because I didn't know. And then suddenly it wasn't? He snapped. I was confused. You told me we were going to start a life together. I panicked. Thunder exploded outside again. The masked man paced across the living room, now breathing harder. You want to know what panic feels like? He said to me. I stayed silent. Panic is standing outside her apartment realizing you destroyed your entire future for somebody who was lying to both of you. He pointed toward Emily violently. She made me quit my job. Emily looked horrified. You chose that. She said we'd leave together. She said lots of things. I muttered bitterly. The masked man stopped pacing, then looked at me slowly, and suddenly something shifted. For the first time all night, we weren't enemies. We were 2 ruined people staring at the same source of destruction. Emily noticed it immediately too, and fear flashed across her face, because suddenly she understood the situation changing. The masked man sat back down again heavily, exhausted now. You know what the funniest part is? He said quietly. Neither of us answered. She probably would have kept both of us forever if she could. Emily cried harder. That's not true. But none of us believed her anymore. Then suddenly, a loud metallic sound echoed from upstairs. All three of us froze instantly. Footsteps. Inside the house. The masked man stood immediately and raised the gun. My pulse exploded. What the hell was that? I whispered. Nobody answered. Another footstep creaked overhead. Slow. Heavy. The masked man looked genuinely confused now. Which meant one horrifying thing. He wasn't alone. The footsteps upstairs were slow. Deliberate. Not panic. Not rushing. Just walking. Every tiny creak from the second floor sounded impossibly loud in the silence afterward. The masked man raised his gun toward the ceiling immediately. His entire posture changed. Tense now. Alert. Which meant something terrifying. He genuinely didn't expect this. Emily looked like she might pass out completely. Tears streaked down her face while she stared upward toward the dark hallway above us. Another footstep. Closer this time. My heart hammered so hard I thought I might throw up. Who's upstairs? I whispered. The masked man ignored me. Then suddenly, a door upstairs slammed shut violently. Emily screamed. The masked intruder spun toward the staircase instantly with the gun raised. And for the first time all night, he looked scared too. That scared me more than anything else. Because until now, he controlled every second of this nightmare. But suddenly control was gone. The lights flickered once. Still no power. Only occasional lightning flashes illuminated the room through tiny gaps in the blinds. Rain crashed harder outside. The masked man stepped slowly toward the staircase. Gun raised. Every muscle in his body tight. Then a voice echoed from upstairs. Male. Calm. You should have left when you had the chance. The masked man froze. My stomach dropped instantly. Because that voice sounded familiar to him. Very familiar. Emily looked horrified now. Not confused. Horrified. The masked man spoke quietly without taking his eyes off the stairs. How long have you been here? The voice upstairs laughed softly. Long enough. Then slow footsteps started descending the staircase. One by one. Heavy boots. The masked man backed up slightly while aiming higher. Emily suddenly started hyperventilating. And then I saw him. Tall. Older than the masked man. Late 40s maybe. Dark jacket. Black gloves. And unlike the first intruder, this man wasn't hiding his face. That somehow made him worse. Because his expression looked completely normal. No rage. No panique. Just cold calmness. The second man stopped halfway down the stairs and looked at all three of us. Then his eyes landed on Emily. And he smiled slightly. Well, he said softly. This became messy. Emily looked like she stopped breathing. You, she whispered. The masked man looked at her instantly. You know him too? The older man laughed quietly while continuing down the stairs. That's the funny part. My brain struggled to process anything anymore. What the hell is happening? I shouted. Nobody answered me. The older man reached the bottom of the stairs calmly. Then looked directly at the masked intruder. You weren't supposed to come here tonight. The masked man's voice cracked with anger instantly. You ruined my life. No, the older man replied calmly. Emily ruined your life. That sentence changed the atmosphere immediately. Because suddenly the masked man looked uncertain. Just slightly, but enough. The older man noticed too. He moved closer slowly. You really think she loved you? Shut up. She was using you. I said shut up. The older man sighed. You were entertainment. The masked intruder's hands shook slightly now. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. This older guy knew exactly how to manipulate him. Like he'd done it before. Emily started crying harder. Please stop. The older man finally looked toward me. And smiled politely. You must be Ryan. Something about that sentence made my blood run cold. Because he said my name like we'd met before. I don't know you. No, he said calmly. But I know you. The room felt smaller instantly. Then he looked around casually. You really tied him to the dining chair? He asked the masked man. That's dramatic. Why are you here? The older man ignored the question completely. Instead he walked toward the kitchen calmly. Like he belonged in the house. Like this wasn't a hostage situation. He opened the fridge. Grabbed a bottle of water. Took a sip. My entire body screamed danger now. Because normal criminals panic. Normal criminals rush. This guy looked comfortable. Experienced. The masked intruder kept the gun trained on him. You told me she loved me. The older man closed the fridge slowly. She told you that. You encouraged it. The older man shrugged. You were obsessed already. Emily suddenly shouted through tears. Stop acting like this is my fault. Both men looked at her instantly, and for a second, real fear crossed her face. Not manipulation. Not guilt. Fear. The older man walked closer to her slowly. You know, he said softly. You were always terrible at accountability. Emily started shaking violently. Ryan, don't listen to him. Why? The older man asked calmly. Because he might finally understand who you really are? The masked intruder looked between them confused now. What's he talking about? Emily shut her eyes instantly, and that silence told me everything again. The older man smiled faintly. There it is. What? The masked intruder snapped. The older man looked toward him carefully. She never told you about me either. The room went silent again, and suddenly, everything shifted. The masked intruder slowly lowered the gun slightly. What do you mean? The older man leaned against the counter casually. She has a pattern. Emily whispered. Please. She finds damaged men. My chest tightened. She studies them. The older man pointed toward himself. Then him. Then toward me. Then you. The masked intruder stared at him blankly.
No.
Oh yes. Emily started crying uncontrollably now. You're lying. The older man laughed quietly. Emily, sweetheart. You literally told me once that broken men are easier to control. The masked intruder looked sick now. And honestly, so did I, because deep down, pieces started fitting together. Tiny things.
Moments.
Behaviors. The way Emily always knew exactly what people needed emotionally. The way she could make you feel like the center of the universe 1 second, then disappear emotionally the next. The older man spoke softly now. You know how we met? Nobody answered. She was 22. Emily immediately screamed. Stop! I was her boss. Everything froze. The masked intruder looked stunned. I felt physically numb. The older man smiled bitterly. She flirted first. Emily shook her head violently. You manipulated me. And yet you stayed 4 years. 4 years. I stared at her in disbelief. The older man continued calmly. She told me I made her feel safe. Then he nodded toward the masked intruder. She told him he made her feel alive. Finally he looked directly at me. And she told you that you made her feel stable. Each sentence felt like another knife twisting deeper. Different versions of the same woman. Custom built for each man. The masked intruder looked completely lost now. You said he abused you. The older man laughed loudly this time. Oh God, did she use that one again? Emily started screaming now. He did. The older man's smile disappeared instantly. Then, for the first time, something dark flashed in his eyes. Cold. Dangerous. You stole $30,000 from me. Emily stopped talking immediately. The masked intruder looked confused again. What? She emptied my business account after convincing me we were getting married. Emily shook her head rapidly. That's not what happened. The older man stepped toward her slowly. No. You owed me. For what? For ruining my life. The older man smiled faintly again. Interesting. He looked toward us. She says that every time somebody stops worshipping her. My pulse pounded violently now. Because I genuinely didn't know what was true anymore. Everyone was manipulating. Everyone was lying. The masked intruder looked mentally shattered. You told me he hit you. The older man rolled his eyes. She told Ryan that about you too. My stomach dropped instantly. I looked at Emily. She avoided eye contact. And suddenly memories replayed differently. The way she cried after arguments. The way she'd tell stories where she was always the victim. The way every ex somehow became evil eventually.
Jesus Christ.
The masked intruder slowly lowered his gun further. You lied to me. Emily started sobbing harder. I was scared. No. The older man corrected softly. You were adapting. Then suddenly, Emily screamed. Not fake. Not emotional manipulation. Real terror. Because the older man had pulled another handgun from inside his jacket. And unlike the other guns, this one looked very real. Very loaded. The masked intruder raised his own weapon instantly. What are you doing? The older man looked almost disappointed. Cleaning up. Every nerve in my body exploded. Wait! The older man ignored me completely. Instead he looked directly at the masked intruder. You broke into the wrong house tonight. The masked intruder stepped backward slightly. You used me. Yes. You manipulated me. Yes. You made me think she loved me. The older man smiled coldly. No. She did that herself. Then he pointed the gun directly at Emily, and said something that made my entire blood freeze. She's done this before. Emily's face lost all color instantly. The older man continued calmly. There was another guy before you. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The older man's eyes stayed locked on Emily. And that one ended much worse. The room went dead silent after those words. She's done this before. Emily looked genuinely terrified now. Not exposed. Not guilty. Terrified. The older man kept the handgun pointed directly at her chest while the masked intruder stared at him in confusion. What do you mean another guy? The older man didn't answer immediately. Instead he looked toward the rain-covered windows thoughtfully, like he was deciding how much truth to reveal. Then finally, his name was Daniel. Emily broke instantly. Please don't. He killed himself. The sentence hit the room like another gunshot. My stomach twisted violently. The masked intruder frowned beneath the mask. What? The older man spoke calmly. She cheated on him too. Emily started sobbing hysterically now. That's not what happened. The older man ignored her. She moved in with him after 6 months. I stared at Emily in disbelief, because she never mentioned living with someone before me. Ever. She convinced him to isolate from his family because they didn't respect their relationship. The older man made air quotes while speaking. Then she started sleeping with his best friend. Emily screamed. He was abusive. The older man snapped toward her instantly. Everybody becomes abusive eventually according to you. The masked intruder looked physically sick now. And honestly, so did I. Because the more he spoke, the more memories twisted into different shapes. Times Emily encouraged me to stop talking to certain friends because they were negative influences. The way she subtly controlled conversations. The guilt. The emotional swings. The constant feeling that I was always one mistake away from losing her. The older man continued. Daniel found out eventually. His eyes stayed on Emily. You remember what happened after that? Emily shut her eyes tightly. Tears streamed nonstop down her face. The older man nodded slowly. Yeah, I thought so. The masked intruder swallowed hard. What happened? The older man's expression darkened. She told police he threatened her. The room went ice cold. My pulse slammed violently against my ribs. She ruined his life first. The older man continued. Then he hanged himself in his garage 3 weeks later. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the storm outside suddenly felt quieter somehow. Emily whispered something barely audible. I never wanted him to die. The older man laughed bitterly. But you also never told the truth afterward. Emily cried harder. The masked intruder slowly lowered his weapon entirely now. His body language had changed completely. Not rage anymore. Confusion. Collapse. Like somebody realizing they dedicated their life to a lie. The older man noticed too, and smiled faintly. That's the moment, isn't it? The masked intruder looked at him blankly. The moment obsession dies. Silence. Then suddenly the masked intruder ripped the mask off violently. For the first time I saw his face. Young. Maybe early 30s. Exhausted eyes. Unshaven. And completely broken. He looked less like a monster now, and more like somebody who stopped sleeping months ago. Emily stared at him and started crying even harder. Ethan. So that was his name. Ethan looked at her like he genuinely didn't recognize her anymore. You lied about everything. Emily shook her head desperately. No, you made me hate him. She looked toward me instantly, and I realized something horrifying. Part of her was still calculating, still adapting, still trying to survive emotionally by shifting blame between us. The older man saw it too. She's doing it again. Emily screamed. Shut up. The older man smiled coldly. There she is. Then suddenly he aimed the gun directly at Ethan instead. Everything happened fast. Ethan raised his own weapon immediately. I shouted instinctively. Emily screamed. The older man's voice became deadly calm. You should have walked away after she discarded you. Ethan's hands shook violently now. You made me think revenge would fix me. And yet you came anyway. You kept feeding me information about her. The older man shrugged. You kept asking. Then he said something that made my blood freeze completely. You were supposed to scare her tonight. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. What? The older man tilted his head. That was the agreement. Emily looked horrified. My pulse exploded. Agreement? The older man continued casually, like discussing business. You break in, terrify her, make her understand consequences. He smiled faintly, but somewhere along the way, he looked around the destroyed living room. You got emotional. Ethan looked sick. You planned this. The older man laughed quietly. She took everything from me. Emily screamed through tears. You stole years of my life. And you stole money from mine. You manipulated me when I was young. You manipulated everyone. The hatred between them felt ancient, deep, personal beyond repair. Then suddenly Ethan looked toward me. And for the first time all night, I realized something horrifying. I was the only innocent person here. Not perfect, not smart, but innocent. Every other person in this room was tied together by years of lies, affairs, manipulation, obsession, or revenge. And somehow I got trapped in the middle. Ethan saw it too. His face changed slightly while looking at me. You really didn't know anything. I couldn't even answer. Because honestly, I didn't know who Emily even was anymore. The woman I married suddenly felt fictional. Like I'd fallen in love with a character designed specifically for me. Then the older man spoke again. You know what her real talent is? Nobody answered. She studies loneliness. Emily whispered weakly. Stop. She finds what's missing inside you. He pointed toward Ethan. You wanted passion. Then toward himself. I wanted control. Finally toward me. And you wanted stability. His eyes narrowed slightly. So she became exactly what each of us needed. The room felt suffocating now. Because deep down, I knew he was right. Emily always felt too perfect early on. Like she understood me unnaturally fast. The older man continued softly. That's why men destroy themselves over her. Emily screamed again. I am not a monster. Nobody responded. And honestly, that silence hurt her more than anything else. Then suddenly, a phone started vibrating. Everyone froze. The sound came from upstairs. Not one of ours. The older man frowned slightly. Ethan looked confused. The vibrating continued. Then stopped. Then started again. The older man slowly turned toward the staircase. That's impossible. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. You said nobody else was here. There wasn't supposed to be. My entire body went cold again. Another vibration echoed upstairs. Then, footsteps. Fast this time. Running. Everyone snapped toward the staircase. And suddenly a young woman appeared at the top landing. Barefoot. Terrified. Maybe 20 years old. She looked down at the living room and immediately started crying. Oh my God! Emily's face lost all color. The older man looked genuinely shocked for the first time all night. And the girl pointed directly at him with shaking hands. You told me she was dead. The girl at the top of the staircase couldn't have been older than 21. Blonde hair, messy, oversized hoodie, barefoot, terrified beyond words. And the second the older man saw her, something finally cracked in his calm expression. Real panic. What are you doing here? He snapped. The girl's eyes were full of tears. You told me she was dead. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Emily looked completely frozen now. The older man slowly lowered his gun slightly while staring at the girl like his brain couldn't process her existence in this moment. You need to go back upstairs. The girl shook her head violently. No. Then she pointed directly at Emily. She's the woman from the pictures. Cold dread spread through my chest instantly. Pictures? Emily whispered weakly. Claire. So the girl had a name. Claire looked like she might throw up. You lied to me? She whispered to the older man. The room suddenly felt 20 degrees colder. Because now there were too many secrets. Too many connections. Too many lies stacked on top of each other. Ethan looked between them completely lost. Who the hell is she? The older man rubbed his face slowly, then muttered something under his breath. This is unbelievable. Claire started walking down the stairs shakily. And the closer she got to Emily, the more horrified she looked. "Oh my God!" Claire whispered. "You're real." Emily looked physically ill now. "Claire, listen to me." "Shut up." The scream echoed violently through the house. Claire burst into tears instantly. "You ruined my life too." I stared at Emily, then at the older man, then back at Claire. Nothing made sense anymore. "What's going on?" I shouted. Claire pointed at the older man with trembling hands. "He told me Emily died 2 years ago." Silence. Ethan frowned. "What?" Claire wiped tears aggressively from her face. "He said she destroyed him emotionally and overdosed after disappearing." Emily looked horrified. "What?" The older man finally spoke quietly. "She was easier to explain that way." Claire stared at him in disbelief. "You made me think she was dead." He looked exhausted now. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" Then Claire looked toward Emily again. And what she said next made my blood freeze completely. "You were sleeping with my father while dating me." The entire room stopped. Even Ethan looked stunned. I physically couldn't process the sentence. Emily shut her eyes slowly. And somehow, that silence answered everything. Claire started sobbing harder. "You told me I was special." Emily whispered weakly. "Claire, you told me you loved me." Every hair on my body stood up instantly. I stared at Emily in complete disbelief. The older man finally looked ashamed for the first time all night. Because now I understood. Claire wasn't just some random girl. She was his daughter. And Emily had somehow become involved with both of them. The realization was so disgusting my stomach turned instantly. Ethan looked like he might faint. "No way." Claire pointed shakily at Emily. "You told me he was abusive." Then pointed at her father. "And you told me SHE manipulated you." The older man closed his eyes briefly. "Oh God." Claire laughed hysterically through tears. "You were both sleeping with the same person." Nobody spoke. Because there was nothing left to say. The situation had become so twisted it barely felt human anymore. I looked at Emily and genuinely couldn't recognize the woman sitting there. Not morally. Not emotionally. Nothing. She looked like a stranger wearing my wife's face. Claire kept crying. "You made me hate my own father." Emily whispered desperately. "I never wanted this to happen." Claire's expression changed instantly. Pure rage now. "That's your problem," she screamed. "You never want consequences. You just want people." The older man stared silently at the floor now, and suddenly he looked old. Not dangerous. Not powerful. Just exhausted. Broken by years of obsession and toxicity. Ethan finally spoke quietly. "How many people are there?" Emily started crying harder. "No." "How many?" he repeated louder. She shook her head rapidly. "It wasn't like that." Claire laughed bitterly. "That means a lot." Then she looked toward me, and I swear I'll never forget the pity in her eyes. Because she realized before anyone else that I was the only person here who truly had no idea what kind of nightmare I married into. "You should leave," Claire whispered to me. Emily instantly panicked. "Ryan, don't." "Don't what?" Claire snapped. "Stay with you." Emily looked shattered now. And maybe for the first time all night, she realized nobody believed her anymore. Not Ethan. Not the older man. Not Claire. Not me. Every version of herself collapsed at once. Then suddenly Ethan started laughing. Quietly at first. Then harder. Almost unstable. Everyone looked toward him. He wiped tears from under his eyes while shaking his head slowly. This entire time, nobody interrupted. I thought I lost my mind over some tragic love story. His laugh became uglier. But I was just another idiot. Emily whispered, "Ethan, please." "No." He looked directly at her now. "You know what the worst part is?" Emily cried silently. "I still love you." That sentence hurt the room physically. Because everybody understood it. Love doesn't die immediately after betrayal. Sometimes it survives long enough to humiliate you first. Ethan looked completely broken now. "You destroyed my life and I still came here hoping part of you cared." Emily whispered through tears, "I did care." "No." Claire snapped instantly. "You cared about attention." Silence again. Then suddenly the older man's phone buzzed. He looked down at the screen, and all color disappeared from his face. What? Claire whispered. The older man slowly looked up. They found Daniel. The room froze. Every nerve in my body tightened instantly. Daniel. The man from earlier. The guy Emily supposedly drove to suicide. Claire frowned. What do you mean found? The older man swallowed once. He's alive. Pure silence. Emily's eyes widened in horror. Ethan looked confused. What? The older man stared at the phone like it personally betrayed him. He didn't kill himself. My pulse exploded. Then who the hell died? The older man whispered something barely audible. No. Claire stepped closer. Dad, what are you talking about? He looked completely shaken now. The body in the garage. His breathing became uneven. It wasn't Daniel. The room tilted sideways. Emily looked like she stopped breathing completely. And then suddenly, she whispered one name. Marcus. Nobody recognized it except the older man, because his face instantly collapsed. Absolute horror. No. Claire frowned. Who's Marcus? The older man looked sick now, then slowly sat down onto the couch like his legs stopped working. My brother. Every person in the room went silent. The storm outside exploded louder than ever. Thunder shook the entire house. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. This story wasn't over. Not even close. Because somewhere out there was another man tied to Emily's past. A man everybody believed was dead. And if he was alive after all these years, then tonight was about to become much, much worse. The older man sat frozen on the couch while rain hammered the house hard enough to shake the windows. My brother, he whispered again. Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed capable of breathing normally anymore. Because somehow, after all the affairs, lies, manipulation, cheating, obsession, and psychological destruction, the story had just become something darker, something unfinished. Emily looked physically sick. Not emotional. Terrified. The older man stared blankly at the vibrating phone still clutched in his hand. That's impossible. Claire stepped toward him slowly. Dad. But he barely heard her. He was identified, he muttered weakly. Dental records, DNA, everything. Ethan frowned. Then how is he alive? The older man looked up slowly. And for the first time all night, he genuinely looked afraid. Because someone lied. My pulse pounded violently. Every instinct screamed that we were seconds away from learning something catastrophic. Then suddenly, 3 loud knocks hit the front door. Everyone froze instantly. Not random knocking. Controlled. Slow. Intentional. Knock. 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 Emily made a choking sound in her throat. The older man stood immediately. Claire backed away. Ethan raised his gun again automatically. And then a voice came through the door. Calm. Male. You should all sit down. The older man's face drained completely white. No. My stomach dropped. Because he recognized that voice instantly. Another knock. Then silence. The older man whispered something barely audible. Marcus. Every nerve in my body exploded. Emily started shaking violently now. Claire looked confused and terrified. Ethan aimed toward the front hallway with trembling hands. The voice outside spoke again. I've waited a very long time for this conversation. Nobody moved. Nobody dared. Then slowly, the front door handle turned. Locked. But somehow, it didn't matter. Because 1 second later the lights came back on. Every lamp. Every kitchen light. The television. The entire house flooded with brightness instantly. And standing outside the front window was a man, watching us. Tall. Dark coat soaked from rain. Expressionless. He slowly raised one gloved hand toward the glass. And smiled. The older man looked like he'd seen a ghost. Because maybe he had. Marcus. Alive. After years. Claire whispered. Oh my God. Emily started crying immediately. No no no. Marcus tapped lightly on the window. Then pointed downward. Toward the front porch mat. The older man swallowed hard. Then slowly walked toward the door. Don't. Ethan whispered. But he already knew resistance was pointless. The older man lifted the porch mat carefully. Underneath sat a key. My blood ran cold instantly. Marcus had been here before. Recently. Maybe many times. The older man unlocked the door slowly. Rain exploded into the house the second it opened. And Marcus stepped inside calmly. No ruse.
No anger.
Just complete control. He looked around the room once. Claire. At Ethan. At me. Then finally, at Emily. And smiled. There she is. Emily looked like she might collapse completely. Marcus removed his gloves slowly. And immediately I noticed something horrifying. His left hand was missing 2 fingers. Old injury. Violent injury. He noticed me staring. Then looked toward Emily. She remembers what happened to them. The room went dead silent. Marcus closed the front door gently behind him. Then locked it. I've dreamed about this moment for years. The older man stepped forward shakily. We thought you were dead. Marcus looked at him calmly. You hoped. The older man couldn't answer. Marcus laughed softly. You buried another man using my identity. Claire stared at her father in horror. What did you do? The older man looked destroyed now. But Marcus ignored him. Instead he walked directly toward Emily. She started trembling violently. Please. Marcus crouched in front of her slowly. And brushed wet hair away from her face gently. Like lovers. Like history. That scared me more than violence would've. You look tired, he whispered. Emily burst into tears instantly. Marcus smiled faintly. I remember when you used to cry like this after lying. The room felt poisoned. Decades of hidden history hanging in the air. Marcus finally stood again and looked toward all of us. You know what Emily's real problem is? Nobody answered. She gets addicted to being needed. His eyes stayed on her. She doesn't love people. Emily cried harder. She loves control. Then he looked toward Ethan. You were excitement. Toward the older man. You were security. Toward me. You were stability. Finally toward Claire. And you? His expression darkened slightly. Were collateral damage. Claire started sobbing silently. Marcus sighed softly. She never knows when to stop. The older man whispered weakly. Marcus, please. Marcus snapped toward him instantly. Please. His calm mask cracked for the first time. Rage flashed across his face. You stole my identity. You disappeared. Because she set me up. The scream echoed through the house violently. Everyone froze. Marcus pointed directly at Emily. She told police I attacked her. Emily whispered weakly. You did. Marcus laughed harshly. There it is. He looked at me. She does that when she loses control. My chest tightened painfully. Because now I understood the pattern completely. Weaponized victimhood. Emotional manipulation. Reinvention. Every relationship ended with Emily rebuilding herself as the wounded one. Marcus paced slowly now. You know what prison teaches you? Nobody answered. That obsession survives longer than love. My blood froze. Prison.
Jesus Christ.
Marcus noticed my reaction. Oh yes, he said softly. I spent 7 years paying for her lies. Emily cried uncontrollably now. I was scared. You were bored.
No.
You destroyed lives because you enjoyed being wanted. The room fell silent again. Then Marcus looked directly at me. And suddenly his expression softened slightly. You're the only one she actually married. That sentence somehow felt worse than all the cheating. Because it meant something. Maybe I was never the exciting one. Never the passionate one. I was the safe ending. The stable future after all the chaos. And somehow that hurt more than being cheated on. Marcus walked closer slowly. You know why she chose you? I couldn't speak. Because you looked kind. My chest tightened violently. She thought kind men stay longer. Emily whispered through tears. Ryan. But I couldn't even look at her anymore. Marcus continued softly. She wanted somebody who'd forgive anything. The terrifying part? He was probably right. Because even now, part of me still wanted this nightmare to rewind somehow. That's what real manipulation does. It rewires your instincts. Then suddenly Ethan spoke quietly. So why are you really here? Marcus stopped moving. Silence stretched. Then he smiled. Closure. Nobody believed him. Especially not when he slowly pulled a revolver from inside his coat. Claire screamed. Ethan raised his gun instantly. The older man stepped backward. And Marcus calmly pointed the revolver directly at Emily. Everything slowed. Emily looked frozen. Completely broken. Marcus's voice became terrifyingly calm. She ruined every life in this room. Rain exploded against the windows again. Thunder cracked overhead. She destroys people and moves on while everyone else drowns in what she leaves behind.
Emily whispered weakly, I'm sorry.
Marcus laughed softly. No, you're not. And honestly, deep down, I believed him. Marcus looked around the room one final time. At some point, he said quietly, someone has to end the cycle. My pulse thundered violently. Ethan whispered, don't do this. Marcus ignored him. Instead, he stared directly into Emily's eyes. And suddenly, Emily stopped crying. Completely. The entire room noticed it. Something changed in her face. No panic now. No sadness. Just exhaustion. Then she looked directly at Marcus and whispered something that shattered the entire room. You loved me the most. Silence. Marcus froze. Ethan looked stunned. The older man shut his eyes painfully. Claire started crying harder. Because somehow, even now, Emily still understood exactly where to place the knife emotionally. Marcus's hand trembled slightly around the revolver, and Emily smiled weakly through tears. You came back after all these years. Marcus stared at her silently. You still couldn't let me go. The room felt suffocating now, because suddenly I realized something horrifying. Emily wasn't scared anymore. She was controlling the moment again. Even at the edge of death. Even after everything collapsed. She still knew exactly how to reach inside broken men and pull the strings. Marcus's breathing became uneven. Emily whispered softly, that means part of you still loves me. And then, Marcus started crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silent tears rolling down the face of a man destroyed by obsession. The revolver lowered slightly. Emily saw it instantly. Of course she did. And she whispered one final sentence. See? I always win. The gunshot exploded so loudly it shook the entire house. Claire screamed. Ethan ducked instinctively. The older man shouted. And Emily's body jerked violently backward in the chair. Blood sprayed across the white wall behind her. For one frozen second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Marcus stood there trembling. Gun smoking in his hand. Staring at Emily's body. Then slowly, very slowly, Emily started laughing. Weak. Bit. Blood running from her shoulder. Because Marcus missed her heart. And somehow, even after being shot, she smiled at him through blood and tears. That smile broke him completely. Marcus dropped the gun, collapsed onto his knees, and buried his face in his hands while sobbing violently. Because after years of obsession, revenge, hatred, prison, destruction, he still couldn't kill the woman he loved. Police sirens exploded outside seconds later. Red and blue lights flooded through the windows. Someone must have called them during the chaos. But honestly, it didn't matter anymore, because the real damage happened long before tonight. As officers stormed the house screaming commands, I just sat there staring at Emily, at the blood, at the ruined people surrounding her, at the shattered versions of love lying everywhere in that room. And I realized something terrifying. Some people don't destroy lives because they're evil. They destroy lives because being loved becomes an addiction so powerful they'll burn everyone around them just to keep feeling it. Even now, as police dragged Marcus away screaming her name, Emily looked directly at me, smiled weakly through blood, and whispered, you would have forgiven me eventually. And the scariest part? She might have been right. If the story disturbed you, comment who the real villain was. And subscribe because the next story is even darker.